ladies and gentlemen, I decided that now that we're a good bit through 2.0, now that Wuthering Waves has had a lot of new players joining the roster and experimenting with a lot of different kits and a lot of different enemies and experiencing a lot of different types of combat, I thought that now would be a great time for us to do a bit of a deep dive into all of the different mechanics that you're going to have available in this game, how it interacts with character kits, and some of the slight nuances that you'll have available in combat that'll really have you thinking a lot more about the decisions that you're making, how you can optimize your gameplay, and in all honesty, avoid some of the very big pitfalls that you can have across your teams, across your rotations, across your various characters that'll leave you sometimes being a lot less efficient than you could. So with that, today, we're going to be going over all of the different combat mechanics that exist. Things like dodging, counterattacking, counter-skilling, and of course, the unique mechanics like skills, forte circuits, Concerto Energy, all of that great stuff. So with that, let's go ahead and get it all started. First things first, I'm going to be using what I like to call Wuthering Waves' training mode. And if you're not familiar with what I'm calling the training mode, I go into the experiment zone of the Tower of Adversity. This is sort of like a mid-level difficulty stage where you're able to fight a level 70 Thundering Mephis, and perhaps most importantly of all, enter the encounter with all of your energy active and 0 Concerto Energy. So this kind of means that it's a great opportunity to practice some rotations in a relatively low stress environment and not have, you know, the issues in the current towers, right? Where the enemies are maybe hitting too hard, you are dying while you're in the middle of practicing. The enemies here aren't going to hit very hard at all, especially if you're higher level, and it's a great opportunity to learn and practice a lot of different mechanics. Because guess what? This boss, the Thundering Mephis, well, ladies and gentlemen, it does basically every single attack type in the game. And so practicing against this guy, he sometimes is a little bit annoying to fight in the actual tower. He's a great way of figuring out how all of these different mechanics are going to work. So we're going to start off this guide by using him as our personal punching bag. So with that, let's dive right on into it. All right, so first things first, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to be talking about is dodging. And dodging in this game is going to be one of the most important things you can do. Because dodging does a lot of things. It allows you to basically negate an attack that an enemy is doing. And most importantly, right, it allows you to counterattack as well. So I'll just go ahead and let him attack one more time. And I'm able to do a counterattack. I'm invulnerable during this entire counterattack. And what that means, ladies and gentlemen, it can be an easy way for you to deal some additional damage. While obviously, right, negating damage as well during the fight. What you're also going to notice is that some characters, specifically like Jinsei, right, they're going to be able to advance into various parts of their kit. I'm able to immediately enter her enhanced state. Very, very fast because I used a dodge counter. This is how long it takes to enter her enhanced state if I don't do that.
So be it.
Oh, okay.
Onwards.
I kind of got hit out of the air with that one. So we're going to try it again.
Our lights shine through.
As you can see, right? That issue was maybe that difference in time was about 3 to 4 seconds for me to fully charge up that attack. And enter that state. But because I just went like this, it takes almost no time at all. And I'm able to get off her damaging combos a lot faster. Similarly, we've got a character like Verena, who can attack a lot, right? To build up that forte circuit, and then do all of that, jump attack in the air to fill up her Concerto Energy rapidly. Guess what happens when I dodge? Look how much faster that is. I'm now advancing through her kit. I'm gaining her Concerto Energy faster. And I'm doing all of her combos faster, right? Because I'm implementing those dodges. However, you do have to keep in mind, there are some characters like Jian who kind of get nothing. Who get almost nothing at all from dodging.
Time to fight back.
I just advance my basic attack chain and don't really do anything. So you got to keep that in mind, right? You got to read what's in various characters' kits. Gion's one of those characters that, in all honesty, his dodge counters are very, very useless. And they're not really worth prioritizing your gameplay around, and you have to keep that in mind as you're going throughout your clears. So, that covers dodging. We're going to go ahead and reset the boss right now so that we can explore another mechanic. And this one's going to be obviously something that a lot of people sometimes might struggle with depending on the character. And I'm going to be using somebody who's pretty good at them. And that's going to be parries. Parrying an attack does a couple of things. First, it deals a ton of damage to enemy stagger bars, that white bar at the top. And it also does something else. It also generates Concerto Energy, this thing, for your character. One of the easiest ways to parries is obviously use a character like Gian who's great at parrying, or parry based off reaction. And that's through using an intro skill. Because my Concerto Energy is currently full on these characters on the side, I can simply wait and then parry like that instead. I don't actually need to time an attack. I don't need to wait for an animation. I can simply just parry on reaction using an intro skill. So we'll just go ahead and prep another one and just show off the parry by reaction a second time.
Ready for battle.
And that's it. Because time freezes while you're doing an intro skill, you can just go ahead and parry based off of reaction as long as you have Concerto Energy full on your character. And it's basically free. And especially when you're playing a character like Verena, getting her Concerto Energy is super important. And every single character, aside from a few, have very, very easy ways to parry off an intro skill. We'll just show it off with Jinxie.
Together we fight. Forgive me.
And as long as you're hitting it sometime relatively within the window, you'll parry. And there are some characters, right? I'll show you guys one character in particular who has one of the best parries in the game. And you might be surprised by it because almost none of her other attacks parry. And this one's going to be Yinlin. So I'll just quickly build up some Concerto. And just check out this one. Wait for him to attack a little bit.
Tear them to pieces.
That thing lasts forever. Her zap string lasts almost forever. And will have active parry frames across the entire attack. So, now that y'all have seen that, it's time to get into our next mechanic. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a little bit complex. I'm going to show you all basic attack advancing through swaps. And this one's going to be pretty interesting. So, one thing you all saw before while I was going over dodges was the fact that Verena, right? When she dodges, you can advance her basic attack chain, right? And generate her forte circuit a lot faster.
Fury boils.
Now, the thing is, right? You can simply swap to her and get the same advancement without dodging. And that's because when you swap onto another character, you'll enter in at a different part of their attack animation. Versus just introing it with Verena.
Leave it to me.
You enter up in the air, and it's actually harder to generate your stacks. So Verena's actually a character where you don't ever actually want to intro in on her. You just want to do a regular swap and then go through her kit that way. And you'll generate the forte stacks a lot faster. Mortefi is similar, where swapping to him lets you do the last few attacks in his basic attack chain. You'll notice that I just went like this, and now I'm generating more of his forte circuit. Versus here, oh, I'm getting my ass beat. 1 second. Y'all noticed, right? Those were the last two attacks of his attack chain. And it's really hard to get to them against a boss like this.
Bloom.
But when I go ahead and I just do a regular swap, I'm done with the attack chain. And that's it. I'm able to advance those attack chains a lot faster, and especially for a character like Mortefee, right? Gain more Forte stacks a lot faster.
Inferno.
And that'll let me do things like combo and generate Concerto Energy really, really, really quickly. So, that's another mechanic for speeding up some of your rotations. And think about it this way, ladies and gentlemen. Speeding up those rotations with those really micro enhancements, right? We did a lot of things that save you a couple of seconds, but think about how many times you're doing those things in every single fight. And when you realize how long you're doing these things in every single fight, that 3 seconds that you're saving, it ends up becoming 10, 15, potentially 20. And when seconds, literally 3, 4, 5 seconds is the difference between doing a 3-star clear and a 2-star clear and getting that asteroid, well, getting those rotations a lot better becomes a lot more important, doesn't it? And so now, there's one last mechanic I want to show. This one's a little bit more optional. It doesn't matter that much, because only a few bosses have attacks that can actually be impacted by something like this. And this is going to be special skills that bosses will do, and countering those special skills. You're going to see that my echo skill on Gian over here, it is the Heron. And by using this special skill during a boss's attack animation, I can completely cancel it. And typically, those bosses' attacks that are cancelable like this, they're extremely powerful. They do a ton of damage. They either have a lot of displacement, or they could just like straight up one-shot you. And so most of the times, people just dodge. And so what you're going to find is that this boss is going to glow red at some point. They typically only use this special attack animation once or twice in like a 2-minute fight. Here. He glowed red. I used this Heron, which has a special ability to cancel special attacks, and I just canceled it. And you can see it had like a special downed animation. Great stuff. However, you do have to keep in mind, guys, that only a couple of attacks and a couple of bosses have this weakness. And the only way to cancel these special attacks is with an echo skill. And so, by having somebody slotted on this echo skill, that means that they're not getting the buffs that you would normally find from things like 4-cost echoes. This echo skill that does counterattacks, it's a 3-cost. And so I'm not getting the same bonuses as I would with other echoes. So it's a bit of a trade-off that I'm making here. And having the counterattack is nice, but typically a damage bonus from 4 costs is better. We'll just go ahead and let him do it one more time.
Tell truth from facade.
And that just cancels it. It makes him vulnerable. All right, and the last part that we're going to be going over today is something pretty simple called Concerto Energy. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of the cornerstone of WuWa's combat, because things like Concerto Energy is what allows you to cast amazing things like outro skills. So, outro skills in this game are basically the most powerful buffs on the roster. Having something like a 50% damage amp or a 38% heavy attack damage amplification, all of these different buffs are, when stacked onto a character like Gian, right? He gets both of these buffs combined. It amplifies his damage, gets close to doubling it, because this amplification happens at the end of all of the other damage calculations. And what this means is that these are the best buffs in the game. And so when characters are able to constantly reapply these buffs with ease, and you dedicate field time to a character, right? You don't switch them out because you'll lose a buff like this, but you'll still keep a healer's buff. Maximizing that uptime, getting the most buffs possible, and then getting them as fast as possible is oftentimes the difference between getting good clears and getting bad clears. And the way that you make it all happen, right, is by manipulating your Concerto Energy. And so there are some unique things about Concerto Energy, and we're going to demonstrate them right now. First things first is that Concerto Energy cannot be saved if it's full. For example, right, since my Concerto Energy is now full, next time I swap, I have to use an intro skill. There's no way to swap without using an intro skill. And that can be a little bit unfortunate sometimes, right? maybe and especially if I'm on a character like Mortifi, right? Who gets a big buff to heavy attack damage for the next character. If I use this on Verena, that buff is wasted. This buff is wasted. She doesn't use this. But maybe I wanted to do something like cast Verena's Echo skill, because I forgot to use it or something like that. That's where my rotation completely falls apart. And now I've lost a lot of efficiency. However, there's also a situation, right, where maybe I'm on Gian, and I want to use his Echo skill, right? I want to use this to gain its buff to heavy attack damage, but then not really interrupt the rest of his rotation. That's where I can do something like this.
Stay sharp.
Fruit of evolution.
Fury
I go onto
boils.
Mortifi, right? I build up his Concerto. And then I go onto Gian, use his Echo skill,
Burn to ashes.
and then I just max out his Concerto, and I go back to Gian. And now all of my buffs are active. And so you simply swap to another character, right?
Fury boils.
While your Concerto is full, or almost full, and you can save it and use the outro skill when you want to. And usually the person that you're going to go on to save it is your main DPS, because they're typically going to have 0 Concerto at the start of the fight, because you're building up rotations on your other 2 characters. And so now that I've been able to save it, I can play a lot more strategic. I can save resources, right? And then use stuff when I want to.
Ready for battle.
And this means you can maximize the uptime on very powerful intro skills like Mortifi's, and use them exactly when you want to.
Fury boils. You're wide open.
Just make sure that you keep in mind where your Concerto is, because you can use stuff when you don't want to. And remember, swapping off is going to make me lose that really, really powerful buff, especially on a character like Gian that really wants it. And of course, right, when it comes to Concerto, doing things like dodging gives you more. Doing things like parrying gives you more. And simply casting your abilities, right, will give you more. But one thing to keep in mind is that your Echo skill doesn't give you any. My corrections, guys. The Fallacy Echo skill does actually give Concerto. And after a quick check, let me see if Hecate gives some. It appears that Hecate gives some Concerto as well. Hecate appears to give quite a bit. Hecate does appear to give quite a bit as well. But yeah, we got some Concerto from that.
As you wish. You're wide
So
open.
it's mainly the damage characters' Echo skills that don't give that much. So here will be our testing on Concerto. And Echo skills giving Concerto.
Tell truth from facade.
As you can see, the Gorilla gives none. The Fallacy gives none.
Testing out.
And Hecate gives none. So do keep that in mind. Concerto Energy, there's maybe 1 or 2 Echo skills that specifically give it, but it's not going to be something that you get from using your Echo skills. So overall, that is going to be our overview of combat, learning some of its baseline mechanics, so that you guys can all just get like a better understanding of the way that you can weave together all of those different inputs to get the most out of combat. I view this stage over here, right? This Thundering Memphis as a great opportunity to practice all of these different mechanics, because he does everything. He does everything you need to actually, execute on all of those different game mechanics. Really, really great training dummy. You obviously have your liberation right at the start, ready to go. And guess what, guys? If you're concerned about dealing too much damage, if you want an actual training dummy and you're scared of dealing too much damage, it's pretty simple, guys. Take your level 90 or whatever weapon and put on something awful. Just take my Verdant Summit, my Gian signature over here, and I'm going to put on something awful. And now my stats are scaled super low, and I'll be able to do things like practice rotations, and I won't lose anything. Right? Now I can just practice my rotations on this team. And this is such an easy environment to do it in.
Unstoppable.
And I can just do it over and over. And yes, your damage numbers aren't going to be the same.
Inferno.
But who cares? Who cares? Who cares about the damage numbers if you're trying to figure out, right, how to press the buttons in the right order? Can you do this with holograms? I don't suggest doing this in holograms because you won't have full energy and you'll have differing concerto levels. This resets your concerto to 0 and gives you full resonance liberation energy. And so it's a lot smoother. It's a lot more typical for normal gameplay, right? And it's a great way to do some practice. Remember, this is a great area to do some practice, but this is only one of the bosses in the game. There are a lot of bosses who have different dodge timing, who have a lot of different things that they're able to do. And you have to keep in mind, right, that oftentimes different bosses are going to have different movesets, different dodge timings, different parry windows. And you're going to have to just practice against every single boss in general to really get full mastery of executing on those mechanics against different enemies. So with that in mind, let me know what you all thought. Was this helpful? And peace out.